I discovered that the orphan we adopted is actually a 22-year-old woman with a growth disorder, and she's trying to seduce my husband. My husband, let's call him Eric, and I have been trying to conceive for 6 years. It was the nightmare of failed IVFs, miscarriages, and heartache. We finally decided to adopt. We went through an international agency that specializes in hard-to-place children. That's when we saw her file. Let's call her Sophie. The agency told us Sophie was 6 years old. They explained that she had a rare form of pituitary dwarfism, which caused her to be very small for her age and required hormone treatments. We fell in love with her photo. She looked so fragile, like a porcelain doll. We brought her home 3 months ago, and at first, it was bliss. But things started getting weird fast. It wasn't just that she was articulate, she was too articulate. She didn't talk like a 6-year-old. She talked like a jagged, cynical teenager. But the real issue is how she acts around Eric. When I'm in the room, she ignores him or acts shy. But the second I leave, her entire demeanor changes. Last week, I came home early from work. I walked quietly into the house because I had a headache. I heard giggling coming from the living room. I peeked in and saw Sophie sitting on Eric's lap. That isn't weird on its own, she's his daughter. But she was tracing his jawline with her finger and whispering something I couldn't hear. The look in her eyes wasn't a child looking at a father. It was hungry. It was possessive. When I walked in, she immediately jumped down and started crying, claiming she had a nightmare, even though it was 4 p.m. Eric comforted her and looked at me like I was crazy for being suspicious. He told me I was being cold and that she was just a traumatized child seeking safety. But the final straw was last night. I woke up at 2 a.m. to get water. I passed the bathroom and saw the door cracked open. Sophie was standing there, watching Eric while he was in the shower. She wasn't moving. She was just staring through the crack in the door. I screamed her name, and she turned around with a look of pure hatred before running to her room. Eric didn't see her. When I told him, he said I must have been dreaming or that she was just looking for the toilet and got confused. He thinks I'm jealous of the attention he gives her. I feel sick. I feel like there is a stranger in my house. Reddit, am I losing it? How do I handle a child who acts like a jealous ex-girlfriend? Commenter 1. OP, this gave me chills. You need to trust your gut. Trauma in adopted children can manifest in weird ways, sure, but the adult vocabulary and the staring in the shower? That is massive red flag territory. You need to protect yourself and, honestly, protect your husband too, even if he doesn't see it yet. Have you ever seen the movie Orphan? Because this sounds terrifyingly similar. Commenter 2. I'm a pediatric nurse. While precocious puberty or trauma bonding is real, you need to look at the medical facts. Pituitary dwarfism is a serious diagnosis. Do you have independent verification of her age? Like, did a doctor here confirm it? Or are you relying solely on the papers from the overseas agency? You need to get a bone age study done immediately. It's a simple x-ray of the hand's wrist. It will tell you if she's 6 or 16. Commenter 3. The gaslighting from the kid is what gets me. The fact that she switched from seducing to crying nightmare victim the second you walked in? That is manipulation. Plain and simple. Eric is in denial because he wants to be the hero dad. You need concrete proof. Don't confront her again without recording it or having evidence, or she'll just paint you as the evil stepmother. Update 1. 1 week later. I read every single comment on my last post, and I want to thank you all for validating that I'm not crazy. The last 7 days have been a living hell, but I took your advice. I knew I couldn't just tell Eric I think she's an adult without him committing me to a psych ward, so I had to be strategic. Things escalated the morning after I posted. I was getting ready for work and couldn't find my favorite red lipstick. It was gone. I assumed I lost it, but later that evening, I went into Sophie's room to collect her laundry. She was sleeping. I moved her pillow to grab the sheet, and there it was, my lipstick, hidden underneath, along with a pair of my lace underwear that I hadn't seen in weeks. I felt like vomiting. I grabbed the items and shook her awake. I asked her what the hell she was doing with my things. She sat up, rubbed her eyes, and looked at me with this dead, empty expression. She told me that she just wanted to be pretty like me. She said it in this monotone voice that made my skin crawl. Then, right as Eric walked past the room, she let out this blood-curdling scream, curling into a ball and shouting that I was hurting her. Eric came rushing in, furious. He snatched the underwear out of my hand and asked me what was wrong with me, yelling that I was shaming a little girl for being curious. I tried to explain that she had hidden them, that it was calculated, but he wouldn't listen. He told me I was acting unhinged and that my jealousy over our fertility issues was poisoning this adoption. That hurt more than anything, but that argument gave me the opening I needed. I told Eric that if he truly believed nothing was wrong, we should get her a full medical workup to ensure her hormone treatments were on track. I framed it as being a responsible parent. He reluctantly agreed, mostly to shut me up. 2 days later, I took Sophie to a specialist, a pediatric endocrinologist I found on my own, not the one recommended by the agency. Eric couldn't come because of work, which was a blessing. The appointment was bizarre. Sophie refused to undress for the exam. She fought us, screaming and kicking, genuinely terrifying the nurses. Finally, the doctor managed to get the x-rays done, specifically the hand and wrist scan you guys suggested, and a full dental panoramic. While Sophie was in the waiting room playing on a tablet, or pretending to, the doctor called me into his office. He looked pale. He closed the door and asked me where exactly we got her birth certificate. I told him the agency provided it. He pulled up the dental x-rays on the light board. He pointed to her molars. He explained that a 6-year-old should have a mix of baby teeth and maybe a few permanent ones coming in. He told me that Sophie had a full set of adult teeth, including wisdom teeth that were impacted. He then showed me the bone density scan. He said that her growth plates were completely fused. He told me that physiologically, the person in the waiting room was not 6. She wasn't even 12. He estimated she was at least 20 years old, possibly older. My world stopped spinning. I felt vindicated, but mostly I felt terrified. I asked him about the size. Why was she so small? He confirms she does have a severe hormonal disorder, likely spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia or a similar form of dwarfism. But she is an adult woman. I drove home in a daze. Sophie sat in the back seat, humming a lullaby. It was the creepiest thing I've ever heard. She caught my eye in the rearview mirror and smiled. It wasn't a child's smile. It was a smirk. She knew that I knew. When we got home, Eric was already there. I walked in, clutching the medical envelope like a shield. I needed to tell him immediately. But as we walked into the living room, I stopped dead in my tracks. Eric was sitting on the sofa, holding a glass of wine. And Sophie, she didn't run to her room. She walked right past me, went to the kitchen, grabbed a wine glass, and poured herself a drink. Eric looked at me, confused, and asked what she was doing. She looked him dead in the eye and said, "I think we need to talk about your wife, Eric." Her voice dropped an octave. The baby lisp was gone. She sounded like a grown woman. I froze. I have the medical proof in my hand, but she's controlling the narrative before I can even speak. I'm locked in the bathroom right now typing this while they are talking in the living room. I'm scared to go out there. What is she telling him? How do I present this evidence without him thinking I forged it? Commenter 1. Polly S*******. This is exactly what I was afraid of. She dropped the act because she knows the doctor figured it out. She's going on the offensive. You need to get out of that bathroom and go out there right now. Do not let her spin a story to Eric alone. Slam those x-rays on the table. Commenter 2. Do not be afraid of her. She's small, she's physically weak compared to you, but her power is manipulation. Call the police. Seriously. This is fraud. This is identity theft. This is a predator in your house. Call 911 and say there is an intruder. Do it now. Commenter 3. She's going to tell Eric that you abused her or that you forced her to act like an adult. She will lie. You need to record the conversation immediately. Put your phone on voice memo in your pocket and go out there. Don't let her isolate him. Update 2. Same night, 3 hours later. I am writing this from a motel room 3 towns over. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely hit the right keys on my laptop. Eric is sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, completely catatonic. We left everything behind. I don't know if we can ever go back to that house. I did what you guys said. I recorded it. I have the audio file, but I can't bring myself to listen to it yet. I need to get this down while the adrenaline is still pumping, because I feel like I'm going to crash and never wake up. I have called the police, but they said it's a civil matter until a crime is proven, though they are sending a patrol car to check the house. Did I make a mistake by running? Should I have stayed and fought her? Commenter 1. You did the right thing leaving. Do not go back there tonight. If she is an adult sociopath posing as a child, she is dangerous. The smashed glass, the psychological torture, she is volatile. You are safe now. Focus on that. Eric is in shock. He's mourning the death of his child while processing the violation of a predator. Give him time, but don't let him waver. Commenter 2. The police are useless in these situations until someone gets hurt. You need a lawyer immediately. This is fraud, adoption fraud, identity fraud. Also, check your credit cards and bank accounts now. If she's been snooping, she might have access to your finances. Lock everything down. Commenter 3. The comment about her saying, "I can give you what she can't" regarding your infertility is the most evil thing I have ever heard. She has been studying your pain points for months. She wanted to replace you. OP, literally replace you. Stay safe. After reading your comments on the last post, I knew I couldn't stay in the bathroom. I turned on the voice recorder app on my phone, shoved it into the pocket of my cardigan, and took a deep breath. I felt like I was walking to my execution. When I stepped into the living room, the air felt heavy, like right before a thunderstorm. Eric was still on the sofa, but he had pulled away from her. He looked pale, sweat beading on his forehead. Sophie, or whatever her name is, was sitting in my armchair, legs crossed at the knee, swirling the wine in her glass. The way she held it, it was elegant, practiced. She looked up when I entered. She didn't flinch. Finally, she said. Her voice was smooth, husky. I was wondering when you'd join us. Eric looked at me, his eyes wide and pleading. Honey, she's saying crazy things. She says she's not. She says she's 22. I didn't say a word. I walked over to the coffee table and slammed the medical envelope down. The x-rays slid out, showing the fully formed adult teeth and the fused bone plates. She is, I said, my voice trembling but louder than I expected. The doctor confirmed it. She has a growth disorder. She's an adult woman, Eric. She's been lying to us for 3 months. Sophie didn't even look at the papers. She took a sip of wine and smirked. Technically, the agency lied to you. I just played the part. And honestly, I played it perfectly. You two were so desperate for a little dolly to dress up. You didn't even notice I was reading your journals. Eric stood up, his voice cracking. Why? Why would you do this? Sophie set the glass down. She stood up on the chair so she was eye level with him. The visual was jarring, a tiny body with the face of a child, but the posture and energy of a predator. Because I needed a home, she said, shrugging. And then, I saw you, Eric. She stepped off the chair onto the sofa, closing the distance between them. Eric stumbled back, bumping into the wall. I saw how lonely you were, she whispered. I saw how she looks at you with pity because she can't give you a family. I saw how you look at her, trying to be supportive but dying inside. Stop it, I screamed. Get away from him. She snapped her head toward me, her eyes flashing with pure malice. Shut up. You had your chance. You're broken. You're barren. She turned back to Eric, her expression softening into something grotesque and seductive. I'm not broken, Eric. I'm a woman. I'm 22. I can give you children. Real children. Not broken little dolls. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Eric looked like he was going to be sick. He looked at her with pure revulsion. You are a monster, Eric whispered. Get out of my house. Sophie's face fell. The seductor's mask slipped, and for a second, I saw something feral. No, she said. I live here. My name is on the papers. You adopted me. I'm your daughter legally, remember? You can't just kick me out. I am calling the police, I said, pulling my phone out. Sophie laughed. It was a high, manic sound. Go ahead. Tell them you're kicking your disabled daughter out into the cold. See who they believe. I'll tell them Eric touched me. I'll tell them you beat me. That was the breaking point. Eric lunged forward, not to hurt her, but to grab her arm and drag her to the door. Get out, he roared. Sophie was fast, unnaturally fast. She ducked under his arm, grabbed the wine bottle from the table, and smashed it against the fireplace mantel. Glass exploded everywhere. She brandished the jagged neck of the bottle like an ice. I'm not going anywhere, she screamed, swinging the bottle wildly. This is my life now. You promised to take care of me. Eric shielded me with his body. We backed away toward the kitchen. Sophie, put it down, he said, his hands up. My name is Elena, she shrieked. Say it. Say my name. We didn't wait. Eric grabbed his car keys from the counter, pushed me out the back door, and we ran. We didn't even stop to put on shoes. I'm still in my slippers. We jumped into the car and peeled out of the driveway. As we looked back, I saw her standing in the kitchen window, silhouetted by the light, just watching us go. She wasn't chasing us. She was just waiting. We drove for an hour before stopping at this motel. Eric hasn't spoken since we got into the room. He just sat on the bed and started crying, deep, heaving sobs. He feels violated. He keeps scrubbing his hands on his pants like he's trying to get something off his skin. I just got off the phone with the police again. They went to the house. They called me back 10 minutes ago. They said the house is empty. The back door was wide open. But that's not the worst part. The officer asked me if we had a shrine in the basement. We don't use the basement. It's just for storage. I told him no. He said, ma'am, we found a mattress down here. And the walls, they're covered in photos. Photos of Eric. Hundreds of them. Some were printed from his social media, but others were taken from inside the house. Photos of him sleeping. Photos of him in the shower taken through the crack in the door. Photos of him watching TV. She has been living a double life in our own home for 3 months. She wasn't just playing a child. She was stalking him. The police have issued a bolo, be on the lookout. But because she has the legal identity of a child, it's complicated. They can't just release her photo to the media as a criminal adult without proof. And the medical records are technically hearsay until verified by their own coroner or doctor. I'm terrified she's going to find us. She has our car's chips connected to her phone. We set it up for parental safety when we got her a tablet. I just realized that. I need to disable the car's tracker. Oh my god. I just heard a car pull into the motel parking lot. It's the same make and model as our second car, the one we left in the driveway. I have to go. If it's her, I don't know what she's capable of. Update 3. 4 months later. I am sorry it has been so long since I updated. I know a lot of you were worried after my last post cut off abruptly. To be honest, I didn't have the energy to type this av until now. I've been in intensive therapy, and Eric is trying. We are safe. She is in custody. But the ending of that night wasn't the relief you might think it was. It was a nightmare that I still see every time I close my eyes. I'm posting this as a warning to everyone going through the adoption process, and to ask one final question. Can a marriage actually survive a trauma this specific? Has anyone else come back from a betrayal that wasn't actually the partner's fault, but feels like it? Enter 1. Up. I have been checking this account every week hoping you were alive. I am so glad you are safe. Regarding the marriage, yes, it can survive, but only if you separate the victim Eric from the husband Eric. He was groomed, essentially. It's hard to see a grown man as a victim of a small woman, but psychological abuse is genderless. Be patient. Commenter 2. I'm a lawyer. Make sure you are suing that agency into the ground. They either knew and didn't care, or they were grossly negligent. Also, ensure the annulment of the adoption is watertight so she doesn't try to claim inheritance or decision-making rights later. These con artists play the long game. When I left off, I saw our second car pulling into the motel lot. I dropped the laptop and scrambled to the door, throwing the deadbolt and shoving the flimsy motel chair under the handle. Eric was still sitting on the bed, dazed, but when I whispered, "It's her," he snapped out of it. I peeked through the gap in the heavy curtains. Under the buzzing neon light of the motel sign, I saw her step out of our SUV. It was the most chilling thing I have ever seen. She wasn't wearing the pajamas she had on at the house. She was wearing my clothes. She had on my trench coat, my heels, which were too big for her, but she managed, and she had applied heavy makeup. She didn't look like a child anymore. She looked like a caricature of me. She walked straight to our door. She didn't knock. She just turned the handle. When it didn't open, she leaned close to the wood. "Eric," she called out. Her voice was syrupy sweet. "Eric, honey, you forgot your keys. Let me in. I'm cold." Eric stood up, his fists clenched. "Go away, Alina. The police are coming." There was a pause. Then, a low guttural laugh came through the door. "There is no Alina," she said. "Only Sophie, you little girl. Or, you love her. Which one do you want tonight, Eric? I can be whatever you need. I know you liked it when I sat on your lap." Eric looked like he was going to vomit. He screamed, "I never touched you. You're sick. You wanted to," she taunted. "I saw it in your eyes. I saw how you looked at me in the shower." I was on the phone with 911 again, whispering frantically that she was at the door. Suddenly, the knob stopped rattling. I looked out the window again. She had picked up a loose brick from the garden bed outside. "If you don't open the door," she screamed, her voice finally breaking into that demonic rage, "I'm going to smash this window and slice my own throat with the glass. I'll tell them you did it. I'll tell them you raped me and tried to kill me." She raised the brick. I screamed. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder fast. The police had been close because of the bolo. She froze. She looked toward the road, then back at our door. She dropped the brick. For a second, I thought she would run. Instead, she sat down on the sidewalk right in front of our room. She pulled her knees to her chest, messed up her hair, smeared her mascara to look like tears, and started rocking back and forth. When the cruisers screeched into the lot, she was already crying, pointing at our door, screaming, "My daddy hurt me. Help me, please." It took 4 officers to restrain her when they realized she wasn't a child. When they cuffed her, she bit one of them, hard enough to draw blood. As they dragged her to the squad car, she locked eyes with me through the window. She didn't scream. She just mouthed the words, "He's mine." The investigation revealed everything. Her real name is Alina, and she is 23 years old. She is a Ukrainian national who had managed to slip through the cracks of a corrupt adoption agency in Eastern Europe. We weren't her first victims. She had done this to a family in Texas 2 years ago, but they had hushed it up because she threatened to accuse the father of abuse. They just sent her back to the agency. The shrine in the basement was worse than the police initially said. She had journals, detailed, graphic journals of what she wanted to do to Eric, and exactly how she planned to get rid of me. She had been poisoning my coffee with small amounts of boric acid, not enough to kill me immediately, but enough to make me feel sick and lethargic, so I would be less attentive. That explained the constant headaches I'd had for months. The legal battle was a nightmare, but the fraud was so undeniable that the adoption was annulled last week. She is currently in a psychiatric holding facility, facing charges of identity theft, fraud, assault, and stalking. Deportation proceedings have started, but it's slow. We sold the house. We couldn't live there. We sold the furniture, the cars, everything that she had touched. We moved to a condo in the city, somewhere with a doorman and security cameras. Eric is the broken. He feels immense guilt. He feels like he cheated, even though he didn't. He feels like a predator, even though he was the prey. He flinches when he sees children. We can't even watch movies with kids in them. We are in couples counseling and individual therapy. My therapist says I need to mourn the child I thought I had, while also processing the trauma of the woman who tried to replace me. Last night, Eric found a letter in our new mailbox. It had no return address. It was sent from the facility she is being held in. She must have bribed someone to mail it, or tricked them. It was a drawing, a crude, crayon drawing like a child would make. It showed 3 stick figures, a tall man, a small girl, and a woman with a red X over her face. Underneath, in messy handwriting, it said, "Waiting for you, Daddy." We took it to the police. They added it to the file. But the fear doesn't go away. I discovered that the orphan we adopted was a monster. That the hardest part isn't the fear of her coming back. It's looking at my husband and knowing that a part of him died in that house. And I don't know if I can ever bring him back. Thank you for saving my life. If I hadn't posted here, if I hadn't listened to you about the bone skin, I might be dead right now. Hug your families tight. And if your gut tells you something is wrong, listen to it.